Hey brother, you know, there's something most men will never put into words. But if you've lived a little, if you've walked through a few seasons, you've seen it. You can spot it in a man's eyes. You can hear it in the pause between his sentences. You can feel it in the way he stands. Shoulders not just tired, but heavy. It's because he's been lied about, falsely accused, misrepresented. And not in the small mix-up in the details kind of way. No. This is a wound to the heart. This is the kind of misrepresentation that cuts at the roots. It's about his character, his integrity, his values, who he is at the core. Maybe it happened in a workplace. Someone saw his progress as a threat, so they decided to plant a little doubt. Nothing big, just a comment here, a suggestion there, until people were looking at him differently. Maybe it happened in his family, where a misunderstanding became a rumour, and a rumour became the story. And now, every time the family gathers, there's an unspoken tension in the air. Or maybe it happened in a friendship. Someone he thought was safe. Someone he let close. They turned and twisted his words to protect themselves, leaving him with the fallout. And here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. The cut isn't always deepest from the liar. It's from the moment you realize someone believed it. Someone who should have known better. Someone who had years of knowing your heart. Someone you thought would at least stand up and say, no, that's not the man I know. But they didn't. They stayed quiet, or worse, they nodded along. And now, you live with a shadow. It walks into the room before you do. It hovers over conversations. It's there when you extend a handshake and you feel that slightest hesitation. If you know what it is to live with that shadow, this episode is for you. We're going to talk about it. What it means to keep your integrity when your name is on trial. We're going to talk about holding your head high when your reputation feels like it's in someone else's hands. We're going to talk about living in such a way that the truth, over time, speaks louder and longer than the lie ever could. This is not a strategy for clever comebacks. It's not a PR manual for image repair. This is a chat about the kind of man you can be when the noise around you is loud, but your heart stays quiet. Because here's what I've learned. You don't have to outshout the lie. You just have to outlast it. And that's what we're going to talk about together. When someone lies about you, especially when they target your integrity, it doesn't feel like a quick stab wound. A stab is sharp. It's sudden. Painful, yes, but obvious. You know where it is. You know how to bandage it. This is different. It's like an engine running low on oil. The car still starts. The gears still shift. The paint still shines. From the outside, it looks ready for the road. But every mile, the lifeblood is draining. You still get up, still go to work, still mow the lawn on a Saturday morning, still show up for your family. But at night, when the house is quiet, when the only sound is the hum of the fridge in the kitchen, and the shadows stretch long across the walls, that's when you feel it. You remember that family gathering, the cold shoulders, the polite smiles that didn't reach the eyes. You kept the conversation light, not realizing the verdict had already been passed, and you weren't in the room to defend yourself. You think, if I had have seen this coming, maybe I could have stopped it before it spread. But you didn't. And now you're holding two things, the truth in one hand and the wound in the other. False accusations don't just bruise your reputation, they bruise your sense of self. They make you question, do people see me differently now? Will this be the story that sticks? Am I forever going to be living under this shadow? It's a wound you can still walk with, but you limp. Not physically, but in ways only you notice. That's the silent wound. And here's the thing, you can carry it for months, even years, without ever telling anyone it's there. Because how do you bring it up? You don't want to look defensive. You don't want to seem like you're chasing gossip. You don't want to give the lie more air than it's already stolen. And you don't want to stoop to the level of the one perpetuating it. So you keep it in, and it sits there, just under the surface. I want to pause here and say, if this is where you're living right now, I see you. I've been there too. You're not weak for feeling this. You're not soft for noticing the weights. It means your integrity matters to you. And that's a good thing. You know what's interesting, brother? The human brain is wired to seek coherence, to connect the dots. The brain makes sense of who we are and how others see us. So when someone misrepresents you, especially someone close, it doesn't just hurt your feelings. It confuses your identity. Some call this narrative disruption. It's when the story you've built about yourself, honest, hardworking, loyal, steady, suddenly gets interrupted by someone else's version of you. And if enough people believe that false version, you start to feel like a stranger in your own story. That messes with a man's sense of self. Why? Because as men, we're not just logical, we're relational. Even if we don't always say it, we want to be understood. We want to be seen for who we truly are. And when a lie replaces the truth, when your name gets twisted into something it's not, it activates something deep. Some men respond with anger, some with withdrawal, others with depression, and many carry it silently, with a smile on their face, but with a storm in their soul. There's a psychological term for this quiet erosion. It's called identity fatigue. It's the exhaustion that comes from constantly managing how you're perceived. Always wondering what people believe about you. Always feeling like you have to prove yourself just to get back to zero. And it wears you down, slowly, quietly, internally. And if you're not careful, it can lead to something even deeper. Learned helplessness. That's when a man starts to believe, no matter what I do, they've already made up their minds. And he gives up. He stops trying to explain, stops opening up, stops expecting to be seen rightly. But here's what I want to say to that man. If that's you, you are not powerless. Your name is not owned by the people who lied. Your identity is not held hostage by their version of you. You still have agency. You still have choice. You still have the right to tell your story with how you live. Not through arguments, but through authenticity. Not through debates, but through consistency. This is where the healing begins. Not when everyone believes the truth, but when you stop needing them to. That's freedom. And that's the kind of man who walks tall again. And it's not because his name was cleared, but because his identity was reclaimed. The real sting isn't always from the liar. It's from the ones who don't speak up. It's the friend who suddenly avoids eye contact, the co-worker who goes quiet in the lunchroom, the family member who never asks you what really happened. But you can tell they've already picked a side. That silence, it's loud. It echoes. It follows you into places you once felt safe. And in that echo, you start asking questions you didn't used to ask. If they could believe that about me so quickly, what does that say about all the years they've known me? If they didn't even want to hear my side, were they ever really for me at all? Those questions can be dangerous, because once you start them, they don't always stop. They multiply. They spread. They can make you suspicious of everyone. And if you're not careful, bitterness moves in. Not the kind of bitterness that explodes. That's anger, and it burns fast. Bitterness is quieter. It settles in like damp in the walls. It changes the atmosphere. You can live with it for years before you even realize how much it's warped the way you see the world. Bitterness tells you, trust no one. Don't let anyone close. Everyone's just waiting for the chance to believe the worst about you. And here's the cruel irony. If you let bitterness run the show, you can end up becoming the very thing you were accused of. Not because you were guilty in the first place, but because your heart has been hardened by the wound. It's the story of too many good men. Someone lied, others stayed silent, and slowly, quietly, the man they lied about stopped trusting, stopped opening up, stopped being himself. That's why recognizing the deeper damage matters. Because if you don't name it, you can't fight it. There's a moment that can make the wound feel fresh all over again. When you hear the lie coming back to you from a new voice. It might be months later, years later, but suddenly you're in a conversation and someone says something that makes your stomach drop. They weren't there when it started. They don't know the truth. They only know what they've been told. And they've been told the wrong story. This is where your instincts scream. Set the record straight right now. And there are times you should. But if you tried to chase down every echo, you'd spend your entire life chasing shadows. I remember talking to a man who had been in a business for 30 years. He said to me, Paul, I used to think that if I just explained myself clearly enough, people would change their minds. Now I know. People who want to believe a lie will always find a reason to keep believing it. That doesn't mean the truth stops mattering. It just fights a different fight. It doesn't sprint. It stands its ground. Truth moves slower, but it hits harder. It may start quiet, but it's still standing when the noise is gone. When the lie spreads, you've got a choice. Spend your life in a sprint or plant yourself like a tree and let time do its work. One is exhausting, the other is steady. I know a man who learned the hard way just how fast lies can travel. When his marriage ended, he braced himself for the loneliness, but not for what came next. his ex-wife began telling people things that cut deep. That he'd abandoned his family, that he'd mistreated her, that he was a liar who couldn't be trusted. Every word was false. And she didn't tell it to strangers. She told it to the people whose opinions carried weight. Mutual friends, people at their church, even some of his own relatives. He felt the shift. The phone went quiet. Some people stopped making eye contact. Others spoke in short, polite sentences, like they were keeping a safe distance. Part of him wanted to fight back, to send the long texts, to post the proof, to corner the conversation and set the record straight. He imagined it, that moment they'd realised she'd been lying all along. But deep down he knew that kind of battle would only drag him into the same mud. So he chose a different path. He kept reaching out, every visit, every call, every birthday, even when they were busy, even when the replies came late or never came at all. He showed up anyway, kept his arms open, and this was the hardest part, kept his heart soft. Time passed, because truth doesn't rush. Truth walks, but it never forgets the way home. And slowly, the people who mattered began to see. They noticed who was steady, who kept showing up, who lived with a clear conscience. And him, still standing, still steady, still sleeping in peace. That's how you overcome, not by shouting the loudest, but by outlasting the lie. When you've been lied about, everything in you wants to fight back. You want to hunt the lie down in every room it's hiding in. You want to correct every whisper. You want to make every single person see the truth, to grab them by the shoulders and say, "Look at my life. Does this sound like me?" I get it. It's instinct. And in some situations, there's a place for clarifying the truth. But here's the problem. If you spend your entire energy chasing shadows, you'll have none left for living in the light. Men sometimes exhaust themselves trying to convince people who've already made up their minds. And here's the hardest reality. If they wanted to believe the truth, they'd already be looking for it. If they prefer the drama of the lie, nothing you say will pull them away from it. So what's the alternative? Live in such a way that the lie starts to look ridiculous all on its own. Now this takes patience. It takes consistency. It takes resisting the urge to get the last word. And this is where restraint comes in. Restraint is not weakness. Restraint is strength under control. And sometimes, restraint is exactly what lets the truth do its deepest work. There was once a man summoned to court. His reputation was the charge. His name was the case on trial. The accusers came prepared. Pages of stories, twisted details, whispers spoken as though they were facts. One by one they stepped forward. Friends who had turned, neighbours who had listened to gossip, even family who no longer saw him the same. Their words filled the room like smoke. Thick, choking, impossible to push back. The man's heart thundered. Every instinct screamed, "Defend yourself, shout back, tear down their stories." But instead, he stood silent. On the judge's desk sat a great ledger. Every testimony, every word, every claim was written down. The man wondered if the ink would ever stop flowing. Would the weight of falsehood drown the truth? Finally, when the room was thick with accusation, the judge lifted the ledger, turned the pages slowly, carefully, then closed it with a thud. The crowd leaned in, and the judge spoke only this: "Time will be the witness, character will be the evidence, and truth will be the verdict." And with that, the court was dismissed. The man walked out, not vindicated yet, not celebrated, but free. For though his name had been dragged through smoke, the judge knew the fire would not last. Only truth can stand when the ink of lies fades. Brother, some men are out there trying to defend themselves in every room. But the man who lets his life do the talking, that's the one who stands tallest in the end. Stay anchored. Your life is a testimony, and time is the proving ground. When you've been falsely accused, the question that tries to dominate your mind is, what did they say about me? But that's not the most important question. A better one is this: who did I become because of it? Did it make me hard, suspicious, closed off? Or did it make me deeper, more understanding, more compassionate toward the next man who finds himself in the crosshairs of gossip or slander? Here's the thing about wounds. They don't just take from you. They also have the potential to shape you. If you let them, they can deepen your roots instead of hardening your heart. I've met men who went through accusations and came out cynical, angry, and withdrawn. I've met others who came out more empathetic, more discerning, and stronger in character. The difference? They decided in the middle of it what the wound was going to produce in them. The world doesn't need more loud, vengeful men. It needs steady men. Men who can be wronged and still do right. Men who can be lied about and still keep a clean heart. If you can walk through slander and still treat people with kindness, still keep your word, still refuse to play the revenge game, you've become the kind of man other men look to for guidance. You've become a mentor without even trying. And now we come to the hardest part. Forgiveness. Not because they deserve it, not because the wound doesn't matter, but because if you don't release it, it will rot inside you. Forgiveness is not agreement. It's not saying, it's okay. It's saying, I will not let this chain me any longer. Unforgiveness is a kind of prison where you're the one holding the key, but never unlocking the door. You think you're punishing them by holding on to it, but really, you're punishing yourself. Here's the strange gift of forgiveness. It frees you to move forward, whether or not they ever apologize, whether or not the truth ever becomes public. One day, someone who believed the lie will see your life. They'll see your consistency, your kindness, your refusal to stoop to retaliation, and they'll realize they were wrong. And when that day comes, you won't need to say, I told you so. Your life will have been saying it the whole time. So where does all this leave us? It leaves us with a choice. To be the kind of man who lives louder than the lie, not by shouting back, but by walking forward. To resist the urge to defend yourself to people who were never really listening anyway. To let your integrity do the talking when your name has been twisted. To forgive, Not because they asked for it, but because your soul wasn't made to carry bitterness. And maybe most of all, it leaves us with the need to guard our minds, because long after the lie fades from people's lips, it can still echo in your own thoughts. And that's where the next battle begins. It's not just what others say about you, it's what you say to yourself. Sometimes the voice that accuses you the loudest isn't theirs, it's yours. You replay the story, you rehearse the conversation, you start to believe the lie they planted as if it was your own. That's why next time we're going to talk about something every man needs to learn. Don't believe everything you think. Not every voice in your head is telling the truth. Not every thought deserves your agreement, brother. Not every inner critic deserves a microphone. Some of the hardest battles a man will ever face won't be out there. They'll be in here. So until then, walk steady, hold your head high, and remember, you don't have to outshout the lie. You just have to outlast it. If this episode stirred something in you today, please don't keep it to yourself. There are men out there carrying the same weight. Men who need to know that their story isn't over and that integrity still speaks louder than the lies. So here's how you can help spread the word. Please, take a moment to like this video. Hit subscribe and click that bell icon so that you don't miss the next part of this journey. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Share what resonated with you or even what you're walking through. You never know how your words might encourage another man scrolling through the comments. Every like, every comment, and every subscription helps this message reach another brother who might be sitting alone in the same struggle. So thank you for being part of this. And remember, the truth, your integrity, and your purpose, they're louder than the lie. I'll see you in the next episode. I'm Paul, and this is Paul on Purpose.